Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to it. It's day 5 of our Spring School edition of Mindset Learn Extra, proudly brought to you by the Department of Basic Education. My name is Katleho, and of course, I'm not alone in the studio. I'm with Dave, and today we are doing accounting. So, how are you?
Good, and you, Katleho?
I'm awesome. Please just tell us which aspects of accounting are we studying? Business studies. Sorry.
Well, today we're going to be going through some exam questions, and we're going to be focusing particularly on investments. We're going to be doing some short questions, medium questions, and then we're going to finish off with an essay question.
Thank you very much, sir. Excuse me, guys, it's business studies. Forgive me there. You remember we are on social network. On Facebook, we are www.learnextra, www.facebook.com/learnextra, and on Twitter, we are @learnextra. Just make sure that you post all those questions that you guys might have, and challenging or not, we'll be able to tackle them here with Dave. Sir, can you just take it away?
Right, guys. So we're going to be doing business roles and business operations. Let's get into the first bunch of questions there. Right. So our first question is, we've got Neymar's Lodge in Walkerville, right, and the farm does not generate enough profit anymore. Neymar decides to invest his capital of 40,000 Rand as a fixed deposit at a rate of 8% interest per year. And the question is, how much will he get over a period of 3 years if the interest was calculated using simple interest and compound interest? Now, you must realize that there's a difference between how we're going to calculate our simple interest and our compound interest. One thing that I'd advise to you guys is look at the mark allocation, all right? If there's a mark allocation of 7, they're going to require you to do a lot of calculations. If it's just a mark allocation of 2 or 3, right, they're just going to require that you put the formula in there and then spit out the answer. Okay, so just look there. You don't want to put in a formula for a 7-mark question and then you go out and lose 5 marks. That's almost 2% of your paper. All of those percentages add up there. So let's go to the first question. Right, so we need to calculate it using simple interest. Right, so remember the formula is P times by I times by T. Right, now P is the amount, which in this case is 40,000 Rand. Right. I is the interest rate, which in this case was 8%. All right. And our time period is the years, which in this case was 3 years. So we just plug that into the formula, and there we have 40,000 times by 8 over 100 times by 3, and that's going to give us a final answer of 9,600 Rand. Right, now you'll get 2 marks there. Right, so very straightforward, plain and simple. All right, the next question is going to be a little bit more tricky, and you're going to have to take a little bit more time to do it. Now we're going to go through it year by year. All right, so just pay attention there, please. Okay, so now we have to work out in compound interest. Now I understand that there's a formula for compound interest, and you can plug in all the information and it'll give you the answer out there, right? However, they're not asking for this. If you look at the question, it is for 7 marks, so they want us to show all the calculation. So we're going to go through it year by year. All right, so if we look here, year 1. Okay, it is 40,000 times by 8 over 100. And that's going to give us an answer of 3,200. So that's how much interest we have earned in year 1. All right, now remember the thing about compound interest, where it's different from simple interest, is compound interest is when we earn interest on our interest. So in the first year, we didn't earn any interest on our interest because there was no money to earn that on. Right. However, in year 2 and year 3, it's going to get a little bit more different now. Right, so we've got our answer for year 1. So now what you need to do for year 2 is you need to take the capital amount, right? Remember the capital amount was this amount here, Okay? And then we need to plug in the answer there. So we're going to put there brackets 40,000 plus 3,200 Rand. All right. That 3,200 Rand, that was the interest that we earned from the previous year. So we need to make sure that we add it in. All right. And then once again, it's times by 8 over 100. And that's going to give us an answer of 3,456 Rand. Right, so that's how much interest we have earned in year 2. As you can see, there's a different amount from year 1, which was 3,200, to year 2, which is now 3,456 Rand. Okay, now we're going to do year 3. So here, I'm going to say, right, 43,200, plus the interest that we earned in year 2, which is 3,456 Rand, times by 8 over 100. Remember, it's 8 over 100 because our interest rate is 8%. Okay, and then let's look at the final answer that we're going to get there. And our final answer is 3,732 Rand and 48 cents. Right. So now you're going to get marks for showing your calculations along the way here. Okay, so we're going to get 2 marks for year 1's answer. We're going to get 2 marks for year 2's answer. And we're going to get 2 marks for year 3's answer. To get the full complement of 7 marks, we must add up how much our interest in total is, and our total interest for the 3 years is 10,388 Rand and 48 cents. Right. So as you can see there, from year 2, we've continued to earn interest on all of the different amounts of money that we ended up with after the respective years. And it gives us a total of 10,388 Rand and 48 cents. Okay. So now going on to the next question. Which method of calculating interest will benefit Neymar? So let's just go back to our previous one. So the simple interest after 3 years gave us 9,600 Rand. Using compound interest after the 3 years gave us 10,388 Rand and 48 cents. Right, so we are obviously going to go with compound interest. Right? Why are we going to go with compound interest? Because we've earned more money over the long run than we would have with simple interest. So yeah, we're going to go with, right, compound interest. Now we need to motivate our answer. Why are we going to go with compound interest? Because after 3 years, we would have earned R788 and 48 cents more than simple interest. And that's what investments is all about. Investments is about making sure that we generate as much money as potentially possible so that we can grow our investments. All right. Okay, so let's go on to question 2 now. Right, read the statement below and answer the questions that follow. Sean inherited 30,000 Rand from a relative. Right. He wants to buy shares on the Johannesburg Securities Exchange. Right, so 2.1. Can Sean buy shares by himself on the Johannesburg Securities Exchange? Motivate your answer. Right, so let's see what our answer is there. Right, so first answer there. No, he can't. Right, you cannot just go and buy shares out of the blue there, right? You have to go through the proper procedures. Now, one thing that you guys might not know is that the Johannesburg Securities Exchange is actually rated as one of the top stock exchanges in the world because of their rules and regulations, which makes it very safe for the investors, which is what we want, because if we have a safe environment for our investors, more people are going to feel comfortable investing on our security exchange. Right. So first and overall there. This question is for 4 marks, right? So Sean has to use a share broker or a stockbroker, right? You put that point there, you get 2 marks, right? Share brokers specialize or are trained to buy and sell shares and are strictly selected by the JSE to ensure that the share trading is executed orderly and honestly, right? That's a massive thing there. That might come something into what you guys would have learned in the year as well with regards to ethics, to make sure that everything, we're doing the right thing and that no one is losing out on money because of unfair practices. Okay. Then Sean can instruct his broker to buy any company shares that are listed or noted on the JSE, right? So you would have got given a maximum of 4 marks here, and it was 2 marks per point. So try and use your time wisely, right? You're already up against it. It's 100. You got 180 minutes to write a 300-mark exam. So make sure that you use your time effectively, right? Don't waste time answering questions that are going to cost you in the long run. Right. So now let's look here. The next question is: state 4 functions of the Johannesburg Security Exchange. Right. So let's have a look at what they have to say here. So firstly, it serves as a link between investors and companies. Okay, so people can go out there, they can see, right, I want to invest in a company, or a company is saying, right, we need people to invest in us so that we can expand our business. The JSE serves as that middleman between people. So that people can go out and invest their money, and also companies that are looking for investment can go out and get money from the general public. Right. This is an 8-mark question. It's an 8-mark question, right? So what they're going to be looking for here are 4 points of 2 marks each, right? So it serves as a link between investors and companies. 2 marks there, right? It monitors changes in listed companies, right? As you guys would know, all companies have to make sure that they submit audited financial statements, right? So they make sure that no one's lying or inflating the prices of their shares so that people don't lose their money in the end. Because if people don't have faith in the JSE is going to collapse. And it's very important that people have faith in the JSE, that they know exactly what's happening there. Right, so that was for 2 marks there. Again, right. It keeps investors informed by publishing share prices in newspapers and other media daily. Right, you guys would have seen, if you look in different publications, that they have the share prices list there. They've got every share that's there, their opening price, how much they sold for that day, so that people can actually see what is happening, all right? A lot of you guys with smartphones will be able to pick up all those share prices with the app on your smartphone. Right, another 2 marks there. Right, then serves as a barometer of economic conditions. I'm sure you guys would have heard this before. If the country's not doing that well in terms of our economy, right, the JSE is not going to do that well because people don't want to invest there. They want to hold on to their money a lot more, which is, as they say, it serves as a barometer to show us how is our country doing, how is our economy doing. If the JSE is doing well, that tends to mean that the economy is doing well. Right. They monitor all activities of stockbrokers to make sure that we've got no insider trading, that everything is above board. It allows small investors to buy shares in large companies. So even you guys, if you wanted to today, you can go and buy shares in any listed company. Right? It enables financial institutions to invest their surplus cash or funds in other shares. Right? That's what other businesses do. They make sure that they can invest in other companies to make their money grow. It uses a Straight to facilitate electronic share transactions. Right? It is all about making sure that everything's electronic. You don't actually have to go to the securities exchange itself, as I'm sure you guys will have seen on different movies. You have all those guys shouting at each other. That doesn't happen anymore, right? Okay. It promotes the service and the image of the JSE for 2 marks there. Enables companies to offer share options and incentives to their staff. The ability to attract and retain quality investment. Forces listed companies to improve their reporting. Right. Creates a safe environment for the exchange of securities. Very important. Right, set strict listing requirements which increase the liquidity of listed companies and allow shareholders to realize the value of their investments through a public trading platform. Right, and at the bottom here, they also said any relevant answer. Right, if you can give an answer and you can motivate why you've put that answer down there, then you will be able to get the marks. Now, this was for 8 marks. Right, 2 marks per point there. Right, once again, try and plan your time effectively. If you use up your time in the short questions, you're not going to have anything left for the essay, which is very important that we have there. Right.
Thank you very much, Dave. Guys, we're just going to take a quick ad break. When we come back, I'm going to be telling you about the beautiful competition that we are running, proudly brought to you by Chevrolet, where you hashtag be a bright spark competition, where you stand a chance to win a Chevrolet Spark L. So stay tuned when we come back, and we'll be attempting some of those questions that you guys have been posting on our Facebook page, and keep the conversation going also on Twitter. We are at Learn Extra. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, Mindsetters. You're still tuned into your Grade 12 Spring School edition of Mindset Learn Extra, proudly brought to you by the Department of Basic Education. We are doing business studies today, and I'm not alone. I'm with Dave, and I've seen you guys have been posting a couple of questions on Facebook and on Twitter. Some of you have been interacting with us as well. Just remember, guys, that we've posted the notes to the questions that we are doing today on our Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/Learn Extra, and some of you have posted them. We are going to be attending to them in a moment. But as I promised you guys, that I'll be giving you a beautiful competition that we are running here on Mindset. It's the Enter Be a Bright Spark competition, probably brought to you by Chevrolet, whereby you guys could win a Chevrolet Spark L. All you need to do is go to the internet and download the Safeway K53 book, K53 app, and then buy this book, and all the information that you need are going to be on our Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/Learn Extra, and you could walk away with that Chevrolet Spark L. And then we're going to be attending to Akona Katla now on our Facebook page, who asked a beautiful question that why do we add the interest of the previous year in the compound interest, Dave?
Right, very good question there, Connor. We add the interest because we've earned that interest over the year. And compound interest is where we earn interest on interest. So if we go back to that question, right? So in year 1, we had 40,000 and we earned 3,200 Rands worth of interest in year 1. All right. So that means that's how much money we have after year 1. We've got 43,200 Rand in our investment. So now we need to earn interest on not just 40,000 Rand, but on the total amount, and that's why we go in year 2, 40,000 plus 3,200 Rand, because that was our total in our investment after the first year. Then you'll have seen in year 2, we earned 3,456 Rand. Right? Can you see there's a difference? 3,200, 3,456. All right, they're different there. Then we go into year 3. Right? So year 3 is the interest that we earned in year 1 plus the interest that we earned in year 2, right? So that's why we have 43,200, right? Which was our capital amount plus the interest we earned in the first year, plus the interest that we earned on year 2. Can you see that there, right? So 43,200 plus 3,456, right? That gives us an interest of 3,732 Rand and 48 cents. And that is why we end up with so much more interest compared to if we do simple interest, right? Because we're not earning any interest on that. Our interest stays the same for the 3 years. Each year, we earn 3,200 Rand in interest, right? When we compare to compound interest, we're earning interest on top of our interest, which is a nice thing. That's what we want. That's how we grow our money. That's one of the important things. That's what the nice thing about compound interest is, that your money is growing on the money that you've invested already. Where simple interest, your money is just growing, but it's not growing on what you've earned already. Okay, so let's shoot through to the next questions. Right, so question 3.1. Differentiate between government retail bonds and unit trusts. Right, so it's very important that you guys understand all the different investment options that we have out there. I'd highly recommend that you go through all the different investment options and draw up a table where you can see the differences between them. All right. So this question was for 4 marks. So it's going to be 2 marks per point. All right. And we're going to first start with our government retail bonds. Okay. Right. So let's first look here. Right. So the first one there is the investor lends money to the government for a couple of years. Right, that's for 2 marks. Now, you'll be able to see that you can go to a money market account at one of the major retail stores, and you can go and buy a government retail bond. Right, all you need to give is your ID, and you'd normally invest an amount of 1,000 Rand. They'll give you a good interest that's higher than the inflation rate. And after 2 years, the government pays you back the 1,000 Rand that you lent them, plus all the interest that you would have earned on that money. Okay, so that's for 2 marks there. The government promises to pay the money back at a certain interest rate on a specific date. Right. So when you buy it, the government will say, for example, we're going to give you 8.5% interest, and on the 10th of October 2016, you'll be able to go and fetch your money, and we'll give you your interest as well. Right. The interest rates are usually higher than the interest rates offered on fixed deposits and money market accounts. Right. So it's a lot more competitive than if we were just putting our money into a bank account, into a fixed deposit account. You know, they're giving us a higher interest rate, right? Remember, one of the important things to look out for is to make sure that the interest you're earning on your money is higher than the inflation rate. Because even though if your money is lower than inflation, even though it's growing, it's actually losing value, which is not what we want, right? We're not going to be able to grow our money that way. Okay. And then the retail bond will receive interest twice a year at a fixed rate, right? So you cannot change that interest. Now, remember, the thing about a government retail bond is that it's one of the safest ways to invest your money, right? Countries aren't all of a sudden going to go bankrupt overnight, so you will always make sure that you'll get your money out. But remember, there is a risk and reward ratio that goes into that, right? The higher the risk, the higher reward you're looking for, right? If something's low risk, you're not going to get a very high reward. But we're going to touch on that later when we get to the essay question. Right, so that was for a maximum of 2 marks. You just had to give 1 point, and then you would have got your 2 marks there. Right, so let's have a look at what they say about unit trusts. Okay, so a unit trust is formed to manage a portfolio of securities in which small investors can buy units. 2 marks there. All right, so what we have for a unit trust, it's they'll go out and create a massive share portfolio, buy a whole bunch of shares in it, divide those shares amongst how many people want to invest in it, and then every single person will be able to get one part of that share because through the unit trust. So it enables people to be able to go out and partake in the JSE and own shares, even though they don't fully own the shares because they just own a little piece of it. Right, then investors combine their money with others and spread their risk across a number of securities and unit trusts. Okay, so if you look there, what they'll do is they will diversify the risk. So that means they'll buy shares from different economic sectors in the country. So we'll have gold shares, we'll have retail shares like our big retailers, right? We'll have shares in manufacturing industry, in beverages. So say now it's a very, very hot summer. Obviously, beverages are going to do very well because people are going to be thirsty. So that share price is going to go up. But what happens if it was a very cold summer? A wet summer, people aren't going to be buying as many beverages, but luckily, maybe we're going to have a company that's in digital TV their share price is going to go up because a lot more people are going to be watching them. So can you see how we've diversified our risk there? Right. We don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, because if something does happen, we could lose a lot of money, like the gold strike we had this year. Right. Then unit trusts offer a variety of choice and a wider range of shares and a lower degree of risk. Right. Because we have diversified, we're going to have a lot less risk going forward. That's what we want to try and manage. We want to manage our risk. We don't want to take unnecessary risks, but we also don't want to be in a situation where we don't take any risks, because then we're not going to grow our money. Unit trust offers you the advantage that you can diversify your risk a little bit more, so that you are not in a situation where you could lose your entire investment. Right. And money can be withdrawn in 48 hours. Right. That is a big thing there. If you want to take out your unit trust, you'll just phone your broker or contact your unit trust company directly and say, I'd like to withdraw money from my unit trust, and they'll take that money out of your unit trust, right, and you'll have it in your bank account within 48 hours. Where if you look at a government retail bond, we have to wait 2 years for that bond to mature. Right? We cannot get our money any time before then. We have to wait for the maturity of it there. So as you've seen that, this was for a 4-mark question. All right. So we've got 2 marks from the government retail bonds, 2 marks from unit trusts, and it makes up our 4 marks there. Right. Okay. Once again, guys, do not waste time. Right. Try and plan your time accordingly, especially in your final exam now. Plan, plan, plan. Okay, let's go on to our next set of questions, right? So it has asked us to identify the types of shares held by each of the shareholders below, right? So the first one is they receive dividends before ordinary shareholders, right? So that is ordinary preference shares, right? So preference shareholders, they're the people who are first in the line to get money out of the business or to get dividends, right? As it says there, preference. Okay. You also get a variety of different types of preference shares that I really suggest you guys go out, research them, and make sure you know the difference between them, right? In this case, knowledge is power. You guys need to know what you are doing with all of this here. Okay. So all of these questions here, they were for 2 marks, right? So we put there ordinary preference shares, 2 marks, right? They get paid after dividends have been paid to preference shareholders. Okay, so we know it's not going to be a preference shareholder. What's it going to be? Ordinary shares. Okay. So that's what the majority of shares on the JSE is. They are all, a lot of them are ordinary shares, right? So you can go out and you can go buy yourself some ordinary shares. There are share trading platforms that you guys can go and use. I really recommend that you guys go out there, play with it, learn about the different types of shares we get. Okay. Our next question is, gifts or payments in the form of shares or stock are paid as company's compensation for non-payment of a dividend, right? And that is bonus shares. Okay, so some companies might be going through a bit of a tough time financially, so they'll say, right, instead of paying out a dividend this year, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be paying out shares to people, all right? So if you look at a lot of the top big companies, that's what they do, right? They go out and they give their shareholders bonus shares and all that to make up for them not getting those dividends, right? Then 3.2.4, they will only receive dividends after everyone else has been paid. Right. So these are founders' shares that we have here. Right. So generally, these are the people that start the company. You must remember that also that shares can also be paid out as payment for directors. If you look at Steve Jobs, he only got paid $1,000. That's what his salary was at Apple, where he made all of his money by getting paid in shares, and he got paid in millions of shares. So every year he was accumulating a lot more money, right? Very, very important that you guys know what's happening with shares and the different types of shares we get, right? You need to, what I suggest you guys do in your revision is have a table with all of the shares, their definition, what they are, and also rank them. All right, remember, preference shares will come first. All right, that's why they're called preference shares. People with preference shares, like if a company gets liquidated and they sell all the company's assets and spread the money out amongst the creditors, preference shareholders, they get paid out first. Where ordinary shareholders will only get paid out if there is any money left over, right? So make sure you know what order the shares go in and their importance, right? Just going back to the ordinary shares, all right? Remember, in the ordinary shares, we get a whole bunch of shares there. We get things known as blue chip, right? Blue chip shares, those are the big, massive companies that we have there, the companies that give out great dividends every year, the companies that don't look like they will fail or collapse. And then we get something called penny shares, right? These are the shares that you can go and buy for 30 cents, 15 cents a share, right? They're very, very cheap. Now, there's more often than not, there's a reason why they are that cheap, right? However, they are very affordable for new time investors like you guys. Just make sure you guys know the difference between them there. Blue chip are our top shares, penny shares are our shares on the bottom, but are very affordable.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thank you very much, Dave, for that. We are still tuned in to Mindset Learn Extra, guys. It's the special edition, day 5 of our spring school. And just make sure that you do join us on our Facebook page. It's www.learnextra www.facebook.com/Learn Extra. And on Twitter, we are at Learn Extra. And I'll be more or less giving you more information on how you guys can get hold of the competition that we are running on Mindset, that you can stand a chance to win a Chevrolet Spark L. We're doing business studies, and keep those questions coming, guys. And we'll make sure to attend to them after a moment. Good afternoon once more, everybody. You are tuned in to Mindset Learn Extra special Spring School Edition, proudly brought to you by the Department of Basic Education. I am Katleho, and of course, I am with Dave. We're doing business studies today, exam questions. So it's very, 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 very important for you guys to just zoom into each and every aspect that you might want to know in terms of business studies, where business studies is concerned. And we'll make sure that we attend to your questions here on Facebook. I see a couple of you guys are posting questions that are relevant to what Dave is doing there. We'll sure attend to them in a moment. And we are on Facebook, guys. It's www.facebook.com/Learn Extra. On Twitter, we are at Learn Extra. And just make sure that you get yourself that app, that K53 app that you can more or less utilize to enter a beautiful competition where you stand a chance to win a Chevrolet Spark L. And this book as well, just buy it. It's very, very helpful. And just stay tuned to Mindset Learn Extra, and just keep interacting with us on our Facebook page, where you get more information on how you can get yourself that Chevrolet Spark L. I'm going to hand it over to Dave now to take it away.
Thank you. All right, guys, now we're going to be going into our essay question. Now, it is very, very important that you leave enough time for your essay questions at the end. You're going to be given 4 options. You're going to have to select 2, any 2 options. Now, you are going to need a minimum of an hour, guys, so make sure that you have got that hour set there, all right? When you have your 10 minutes reading time before you start your exam, make sure you start at the essay questions so that you can just get a rough feel of where you're going to go, read through your paper, then go back to your essay questions to make sure that you know what you want to answer, and have a clear question that you want to answer. Do not waste any time, guys. I have seen so many people that have left out essays, and that's going to be minus 13% for your entire paper. You don't want to be caught in that situation, right? So we're going to be going through our essay question now. I'm going to underline the important parts that I think you guys should focus on, and then we're going to see what the question says, right? Okay, so let's have a look there. You're a financial advisor who must assist a client who wants to invest 5 million rand for 3 years, right? That's very important. Remember, we had our simple and our compound interest, right? So this is going to come into play there. Right, in one of the following investment options, so we got a fixed deposit, right, at a bank account for 3 years, and they'll give us simple interest of 8.5% per year, right? Then we have shares in a well-known listed company at 5 Rand per share. right? Dividends of 95 cents per share have been paid out in the past 2 years. The directors have indicated that this amount will not change for the next 3 years. All right. Government retail bonds for 3 years at 8% per year, compounded annually. Right. And then we also have a small shopping center with 10 shopping outlets. Right. Rent per unit will be 60,000 Rand per year for the next 3 years. Right. So we've got a lot of information there from our case study. Right. So now, what is the question asking from us? First and of all, we have to explain each investment option listed above. So we need to make sure, right, talk about every single investment option, what's their definition, how do they work, etc. Then we also need to describe the risk involved in each option, right? And then we need to calculate the return on each investment, right? And once again, show your calculations clearly. Very, very similar to how we had our compound interest, right? Show your calculations. You don't want to be missing out on 3 marks because you haven't shown your calculations, right? We've got 4 different types of investments here. We need to make sure that we have those, show those calculations. That's 12 marks of your essay you'll miss out if you don't show your calculations. Right, and then finally, we need to recommend the best investment option, right? Okay, so let's have a look what they have to say here. Excuse me. Right, so firstly, our introduction. The customer investor must seek advice on various investment options in order to make informed investment decisions. Right, so you're going to get 1 mark for your point here. Remember, your introduction, excuse me, is very simple and basic and to the point. An investor should consider the advantages and disadvantages of each form of investment should therefore understand the characteristics of each form of investment. You don't want to be in a case where you actually don't know what you're investing in. You don't know what your investment is. Or you're just going to go out and say, right, here's 5 million Rand. I don't know what I'm going to do with this money. You need to know exactly what you're doing, right? In this case, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing in your hard-earned money. Right? And the financial advisor should consider the risk involved in different forms of investments, as high-risk investments earn a higher income. Right. Low-risk investments are safer, but provide lower return on investment. Okay, so remember, there is the relationship between risk versus reward. The riskier something is, the higher the reward I'm looking for. Right. If something isn't very risky, right, I'm not going to get a high reward for it. So you need to make sure that you understand the correlation between those 2 points there. Right, so the first investment option that we're going to do is fixed deposits. Now guys, please, when you're setting out your essay, all right, make sure that it's very legible, all right? Go into your final exam with a highlighter so that you can highlight the different headings, all right? So that people can see what you're talking about. Don't give a massive essay where there's no breaks in the pages and it just looks like a mess, all right? Bullet points, right? Heading, underline, highlight, then bullet points, right? So let's see what we have to say about fixed deposits here, okay? So fixed deposits is money is deposited in a bank account for a predetermined period at a fixed interest rate, okay? Fixed deposits may not outperform the effect of inflation over a long period, right? This is very important. Okay, now you might remember earlier I said to you, make sure that the money you're earning is higher than the inflation rate. Okay, so let's look at the risk, right? The risk is very low as the investor will receive his or her investment when the fixed deposit matures as the term expires. Okay. Banks aren't all of a sudden going to run out of money, all right? Especially in South Africa with our legislation and the Consumer Protection Act and the National Credit Act, banks aren't going to run out of money, all right? So it's a very safe investment. Even if a bank loses money, right, there's insurance to cover for that. So you'll never, ever lose your money. So it's a safe investment. So is there a high risk? No, there isn't. That is why the reward isn't very high. Okay. So this is a low risk investment. But if we look there, we're getting a low reward. We are only earning, let's see how much we're going to be earning from the bank. All right. We're only going to be earning 8.5%. And when you consider that inflation is 6.5%, right, it's not that great, right? So now we're going to go on our return on investment. Right, so now I've put the formula for return on investment here so that you guys can see that. It's important that you know that. You need to know how much money am I getting back in the end there, right? So return on investment equals our gain from our investment minus the cost of the investment divided by the cost of the investment, and it's expressed as a percentage, right? So it's not very high compared to other types of investments. Okay, and interest may be calculated at a single or compound. Interest may be paid out annually or capitalized and reinvested. All right, so let's just look at our calculation here. So we have 5 million times by 8.5% over 100, or times by 3 years, and after our 3 years, we have got 1.275 million rand that we've earned in interest. All right, so we would have got a nice 2 marks there for that. Okay, and if we go back to the question there, it says, right, a fixed deposit bank account for 3 years at a simple interest rate of 8.5%. Right, so that was very simple there. Right, what is the one downside of this? Yes, the risk is low. Right, so that is a positive there. Okay. However, what aren't we earning? We aren't earning compound interest. And as you guys can see from the first question we did, compound interest holds the key because we are earning interest on top of our interest there, which is what we want. We want our money to grow for us. I'm sure you guys would have heard of saying, make your money do the work for you. That is what compound interest does. That's what we need to do there. Right. Let's go on to the next investment. Right. So, next heading, underline, shares. Can you see there? Bullet points, bullet points. The markers want to give you the marks, but you need to show them where the marks are. And make sure that your work is neat, guys, right? There's nothing worse than you marking 1,000 scripts and it looks like someone's writing in hieroglyphics. Take your time there, make sure that it's neat so that you can get those marks. Those marks will add up in the end. Right, so let's look at shares. What is a share? When you buy shares in a company, you become a proportional owner or shareholder of that company. Right, so when you buy shares in a company on the JSE, right, you're actually an owner of that company. So when someone tells you, what do? You don't have to say, oh, I've just finished matric or I'm a student. You can be like, oh, I own a couple of companies. You might not own a lot of that company, but you do own a bit of that company there. Right. A shareholder can receive a proportional share in the profits of the company called dividends. Right. Dividends is our nice thing there. Okay. Shareholders may vote at a shareholders meeting. All right. So that's for things like who should the directors be. All right. What strategy should the company follow going forward? All of that. Okay. Shares can be bought through a registered stockbroker or using an online share account on a broker's electronic or internet platform. All right. Right. A broker's commission is paid every time shares are bought or sold. All right. So you pay a percentage of the actual share as a commission there. And once again, any relevant answers related to shares, right? So this was 2 marks per point for a maximum of 4 marks there, right? So let's look at risk, Right. The risk of losing your initial investment or part of it can be high over the short term if share prices fluctuate or change a lot. Right. So if there's a lot of instability in the marketplace, right, the share prices could come down quite a bit. Right. So it could be very volatile. So at the moment, if you've been looking, the rand has been weakening against the dollar. The markets have been very volatile there. So you could lose your entire investment, which is very dangerous there. But once again, that's coming into that risk and reward. Once again, you can make a lot of money, right? So the risk could potentially be high, all right? And it can go all the way down to medium, all right? Okay, you need to know that there. Okay, so let's look at our return on our investment. This depends on the decision of directors to declare dividends or not. Right? Dividends are paid in cash or in the form of additional shares, and investors pay tax on dividends earned. All right? However, the tax rate that you pay is quite low. So let's do the calculation here. So we have R500,000. All right? That means we can buy 1 million shares because the share price is R5 per share. So we've got 1 million shares that we can do something with there. And they said the dividends per share was 95 cents per share. Right. So we've got 1 million shares, and we're going to get 95 cents per share that we owe in dividends. Right. So 1 million times by 95 cents times by 3 years, and then after 3 years, we're going to be sitting with 2,850,000 rand. Okay. Can you see that there? Like when we compare it to our fixed deposit, which was with 1,275,000 rand, right? Compared to 2,850,000 rand, the fixed deposit, the risk was a lot lower. The share price, the risk is a lot higher. However, our reward is a lot higher, right? It's over double what we would have got for our fixed deposit price, right? We'll continue this after the break.
Of course, Dave. We're going to take a quick ad break, and guys, when we come back, we'll be attending to some of those questions that you have on Facebook. Akona, I see you. We've answered you. Joe, he's asked about a human resource essay. We tackled essay in how to write essays just a while ago, so we can attend to that. And then Tepiso, Katleho, and Goodwill, I see you guys on Facebook. Just make sure that to be like this, guys, you must just post the questions on our Facebook page. It's www.facebook.com/learnextra, and we'll be sure to attend to them. But then right now, we're just going to be taking a quick ad break. It's business studies time, grade 12, when we come back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. It's day 5 of our spring school edition here on Mindset Learn Extra, and we are with Dave. It's proudly brought to you, by the way, by the Department of Basic Education, and we are doing business studies today. I'm with Dave, and I've seen some of your questions that you guys have posted on Facebook. We'll be sure to attend to them in a moment. You must remember we are on Twitter as well. It's at Learn Extra, and we have posted the notes and the links that will lead you to more or less what we are learning today. We are doing exam questions, so you guys must just concentrate, and be sure to ask all those questions that you guys might find challenging going straight into the exam. I'm just going to hand it over to Dave right now to take it away.
Right, we're going to carry on with our essay question. And if you guys will recall before the break, it was all about investing our 5 million rand. What we've done is our fixed deposit, right? And we've just finished our shares, and we're discussing how the risk between the fixed deposit and the shares was a lot different, right? Shares are obviously more risky. You could potentially lose all of your money if a company goes bankrupt that you've invested in, right? Where the bank's not going to lose your money, right? However, if you look at how much we earned after over the 3 years with our shares, was phenomenally higher than what we would have earned if we just had a fixed deposit. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to go on to is our government retail bonds. Right, once again, guys, underline your heading, leave a line there and bullet points. Right, so the investor lends money to the government for a number of years, right, and it's predetermined or at a fixed term rate. Right, government promises to pay back the money at a certain interest rate on a specific date. Okay, and there are 2, 3, or 5 year bonds available. All right. Retail bonds are easy to buy or sell at many supermarket chains, post offices, JSE, and online. There are no administration fees or commission payable for transactions, right? So if you look at when we buy shares, we're paying a lot of fees. Every time that we buy or we sell shares, we have to pay a percentage, a commission to our stockbroker or the online platform that we are using, where if we're buying bonds, we don't have to do that. So we're saving money, right? The government encourages citizens to save, and at the same time, the government has capital available for rendering services and to improve infrastructure. Right. So instead of the government going to a bank to lend money, the government goes to its citizens and they say, right, guys, we need money to build new schools, highways, hospitals. And if they had to lend that money from the bank could charge them anything up to 13% interest, where if they lend money from their citizens, they only have to pay their citizens back 8.5%, for example. Right, so the government can save money there. It's an efficient means for them. And also, it's quite a safe investment for investors out there, because the government is not all of a sudden going to run away with their money. The government is still going to be around for a while, and they have a lot of resources that they can use to pay the people back their money. All right. So a minimum of 1,000 Rand and a maximum of 1 million may be invested. All right. So all of these points were for 2 marks there. So you had to give 2 points, and you got 2 marks. That gave you a sub-max of 4 marks there, right? So we know what we're doing there. So let's look at the risk. No risk is involved in investing in government, retail bonds, as the investor will receive his investment back at maturity, right? I do not necessarily agree that there's no risk. There's always a risk when you invest your money, right? And if you look at some countries in Europe, such as Greece, right, where their economies have collapsed because their government wasn't very wise with how they spent their money. But generally, it is a very safe investment. There is a risk. There always is a risk, but the risk is very low. All right. So capital and interest will be paid electronically into the investor's bank account when the period expires. Okay, so they'll say, right, give us your bank account details. You give them your bank account details. They will then put the money into your bank account, so you don't have to worry about walking around with large sums of money. It's all electronic, so you have your money and it's safe. No one can steal it from you. Right? And investors can only lose his or her investment in times of war, right? Luckily enough, we don't have any big enemies out there, so we're not going to war with anyone. Sub-max there, 2 marks, so it's 2 marks per point, right? Let's look at our return on investment. A market-related interest rate will be determined, and this rate is fixed for the investment period. It's very important there, fixed. Interest is earned half annually on the 31st of March, and then the other half on the 30th of September. Interest may be capitalized on request and is compounded annually, right? So that's just where we add it to our capital amount there. Okay, so calculation of our return on investment. So we've got 500,000 Rand times by 8%, right? And it's over 3 years. So at the end of our 3 years, our investment value is going to be 6,298,560 Rand, right? So to see how much interest we have earned, we say 6,298,560 Rand minus 5 million gives us interest of 1,298,560 Rand, right? Okay, and that was for 2 marks there, 2 marks there, gives us a max of 12 marks for the section. So if we just go back to our different investments, so we had for government retail bonds, 1,298,000 Rand and 560 Rand, sorry. Right, we look at our shares. 2,850,000 Rand after 3 years. Okay, that's double what we earned with our retail bonds, over double. And then we look at our fixed deposit. only 1,275,000 rand after 3 years. Right. Now, even though the interest that you received was a lot more, right, because it wasn't compounded, like here, can you see there? We actually earn more money here, once again, because of compound interest, right, where our money is earning money. That's what we want to be. That's the situation that we want to be in. We don't want to be in a situation where our money isn't growing as much as it could be, as efficiently as it should be. Right. And now we're going to look at a business investment in a shopping complex. All right. So remember, this is property. In property, we can have two types of growth. We get rent, right? So that's where people will pay rent every month for their property, like what they're discussing here. And then we also have another type of growth, and that's called capital growth, all right? That'll be relevant to shares and to property. I'll explain a little bit better later for you guys. Okay, so just bear that in mind there. So a capital investment is made when capital goods are bought, like land and buildings. And in this case, we've bought a little shopping mall. Right. Property is bought to rent out, like what we're doing, right? Or to be sold at a profit in the future. So right now, we are getting 60,000 Rand rent per year per unit. And don't forget that there are 10 units. Okay. The location of the shopping mall should be considered, as surrounding property values will influence the value of the shopping mall property. Right, so that's very important. Okay. You don't want to go and buy property next to a rubbish dump or in an industrial area where there's a foul smell, right? Because people aren't going to want to go there. And if people don't want to go there, then people aren't going to want to have a shop there. If they don't want to have a shop there, you're not going to get any income, right? So you want to have your property in an area that people want to go to so that you can service those people properly. Okay. This type of investment may not quickly or easily be converted into cash, right, as it may take time to sell it again, right, very important, okay, in terms of property, especially when the interest rate goes up, the Reserve Bank sets the interest rate higher, right, people won't have as much money to buy property, so it's very hard to convert that into cash. However, it is something that is sustainable, and you can actually hold on to it, right? You can hold on to your property and you can show people your property there, where if you look at shares, right, people might not be able to see the shares, they're not tangible, right, and you're reliant on ideas of businesses for shares to grow. Property is solid and it'll be around there for many years to come, right? There's a high registration fees when purchased, annual, and then the property also, you have to pay rates and taxes every single year, right? If a shopping mall appreciates in value, so appreciate means to go up in value, capital gains tax will be paid when the property is sold, right? So capital gains, that's if I bought a property for 1 million and I sold it for 2 million, right? The difference there is 1 million. So I'll pay tax on this 1 million Rand, right? And it's known as capital gains tax, all right? I'm going to put there CGT so that you guys understand that there. Okay. The risk. So property may lose value, all right? Depreciation, so that's where the price goes down over time and will have to be sold at lower than initial investments, all right? So a lot of you guys, I'm sure you would have heard of something called the subprime crisis that happened in 2008 that affected all global economies and the whole world went into a recession. What happened there was people were buying properties and Unfortunately, they lost their jobs, so they couldn't afford to pay for those properties. So they bought a property that's worth R1 million, for example. And because so many properties came on the market at once, and you guys will know supply and demand, right? If there's a large supply but a low demand, the prices are going to go down. And those prices went from R1 million to 800,000 Rand. However, the people still took a loan for that R1 million to buy their property. However, now they're only getting 800,000 Rand for their property. So they were left in a position, something called negative equity. That's where you owe more money than your asset is actually worth, all right? However, you need to make sure that when you buy a property, you're not buying at an inflated price. And you also need to realize that property is a long-term investment. By long-term, we're talking about 5 to 10 years in the future. Right. So our return on investment, tenants may not pay their rent regularly, so the owner may lose regular income. Right, that is something that we have to take into account. So there is a risk when it comes to property. Right. However, if we manage that risk properly, then we're not going to have a problem. So let's work out how much money we'd have in the end there. So in the end, we have 10 units. Times by 60,000 Rand per annum over 3 years, right? And we end up with a total of 1.8 million Rand, okay, over the 3 years. Not the highest return that we've got, right? But it's still pretty decent, okay? However, one thing that we can see here, you'll see that there was no compound interest on that. We didn't earn any additional interest like we could have on our other investments, right? So now we need to see which investment option are we going to recommend. So based on the lowest risk, we're going to go for government retail bonds, right? So it all depends what type of investor are you. Are you a risky investor? Do you like taking chances? Do you want to go out there, grab the bull by the horns and see what happens? Or do you like playing it safe, right? There's no correct answer there. It's all dependent on what you want. Okay. Then we have shares rendered the highest return on investments over 3 years, but the risk of this form of investment is fairly high. However, as you could see, we made a lot of money there, right? So we could earn a lot of money there, right? And then any other relevant recommendation from the option listed in the question that is supported by the calculations above. So if you can support something, then you can get it there. Then our conclusion. When choosing the best investment option, all possible information about different options should be considered, as large amounts are at stake and will influence the future of the investor, either positively or negatively. 2 marks there. An informed choice of investment is a wise choice, and this will only be to the benefit of the investor, all right, or anything else that you guys can put in your conclusion there. Remember, your conclusion is answering what the question gave you. Right, Katlego, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Of course, guys, we are on Facebook, as I must reiterate this so that you can interact with us here on Mindset Learn Extra. It's Spring School Special Edition, proudly brought to you by the Department of Basic Education. We are doing business studies. I'm with Dave, and it's been an interesting ride so far. So you guys, just go grab some water and come back. And when we come back, we'll be attending to some of those questions that you guys have thrown at us on our Facebook page. Welcome back, Mindset. This is the final segment of Business Studies, Day 5 of our Spring School edition of Mindset, proudly brought to you by the Department of Basic Education. We're doing business studies, and I'm with Dave, and I've noticed some of your questions, and we'll be attending to them in a moment. I should remind you guys, though, that we have a competition that's very interesting that we are running here on Mindset, proudly brought to you by Chevrolet, where you stand a chance to walk away with a Chevrolet Spark L. All you need to do is to download the app, Safeway K53 app, or you can just buy this beautiful book, and then you'll find information and details on how you can enter the competition. And just keep tuned to our Facebook page. We have interesting information that could help you win that Chevrolet Spark L. So more or less, just go there and then be a regular on our Facebook page. And I have a question here from Goodwill Tembinkosi Tomo, who asked me and Dave here, and the rest of the mindsetters out there, that how is prime interest rate different from compound and simple interest?
Right, thank you, Goodwill. Now, the first thing that you need to understand is that simple and compound we use when determining our investments. Sorry, guys. So we use that to see, right, what's happening with our investments. How much money are we going to get from our investments? Okay. Prime interest has got to do with debt. And the prime interest rate is the lowest rate at which banks will lend out money to consumers. So for example, I want to go and buy a new car. I go to the bank, I say, right, I would like to buy this new car. And they'll say to me, you've got a very good credit history. So what we're going to do is we're going to charge you prime, right, which is, for example, let's say 11%, right? Whereas if I had a very bad credit history, they'll say to me, right, we're going to charge you the prime interest rate plus 5% because I'm a little bit of a higher risk. So in the end there, I'll be paying 16%. So simple and compound interest have got to do with when we investing and we earning money. Prime interest has to do when we take out debt, right? And that is the lowest interest rate that the banks will charge us, all right? And remember that prime interest is linked to something called the repo rate. And the repo rate is the interest rate that the Reserve Bank lends money to the commercial banks, right? So prime interest is not related in any way to simple or compound interest, right? Simple and compound interest are just tools that we use to calculate how much money our investment's going to make. Where prime interest is what we use for when we go into debt, and that's the minimum rate that the banks will charge us. I hope that answers that question for you there. Goodwill. Right. So guys, we're going to be going into writing essays. Right. Very, very important, guys. Please, I cannot emphasize this anymore, right? We need to you need to make sure that you do not spot anything. Do not try and spot an essay, okay? You must be prepared all the way through. We've had a question come through saying, which section should we focus on? Which section shouldn't we focus on? Focus on everything. Start making your notes right now. Now, the essay is a place where you can get a lot of your marks very quickly. Now, you must remember in an essay, you get 32 marks for your content. And that's 1 mark per point. Okay, so that means you're going to be giving out 32 marks of facts or answering the question, all right? We also then get 8 marks for lasso, all right, and that is 2 marks for your layout, which I'm going to come to now, all right? 2 marks for analysis, right? Have you answered what the question is asking from you? Okay? And we're going to have 2 marks for synthesis. Have you put everything that you needed to in there? And 2 marks for originality. Right. So we don't want just parrots saying, all right, this is what we're going to do for investment. You need to come up with original examples that you have thought of to get these 2 marks for originality, right? Please, guys, it's so, so important. I cannot reiterate this even more. After all my years of marking matric papers, make sure that your layout is set properly. Underline your headings, right? We want to give you marks, but you need to show us where those marks are and make sure that everything is neat bullet points. Go in there. The markers are just seeing blue and black pens, right? Add a little bit of color in there. It's going to actually pick them up and make them take your essay a lot more serious. Right. So what we need to do with our SA now is think of your SA as a evening when you go out to a fancy restaurant. Now, I went to this amazing restaurant when I lived in London. Was one of the best restaurant experiences I had there. Right. So we need to first start by reading the essay. And we need to underline the important parts. So if we look at question 4 here, they've given me this little story here. So now I'll go through and I underlined the important parts. So like invest 5 million. For how many? For 3 years. Okay. Fixed deposit. That was the first thing they said. 8.5% per year for 3 years. Right. Shares in a well-known listed company. Okay, so we're talking about shares as well. 5 Rand per share. Dividends of 95 cents per share. Underline that. Next 3 years as well. Right. Government retail bonds. 3 years at 8%. Right. And it's compounded annually. Right. Very good to know that. Okay, then we're looking small shopping center with 10 shops and outlets. So we rent per unit is at 60,000 Rand for the next 3 years. Right. So we've underlined all those things. Then we have to see, what is the question asking us? So support your customer to make the best investment decision by explaining each investment option, describing the risk involved, calculating, and then finally recommend the best option available there. Right. So we need to start our essay like a fancy supper. And our introduction, sorry guys. Must be like a starter. Right. Here you want to get the marker's appetite wet, right? What are we going to talk about in our essay, right? Now, don't give a half a page as your introduction. Aim for 2 to 3 lines, right? Give some points. This is what we're going to be discussing. There are different forms of investments. They all carry a certain degree of risk, and they'll impact on your return of outcome after the 3 years. So we're just going to have 3 lines, introducing the topic, done. Then we are going to skip a line, all right? So your introduction is like a starter. When you go to the restaurant, you get those small little portions. They're not big. They're not meant to fill you up. They're a small little portion. They're there to make you more hungry so that you can tackle the main meal, all right? Then we get to the body of the essay. Okay? So the body are all of our different points. Once again, sorry guys, make sure everything is underlined. So the body is like the main meal. So for my start at this restaurant that I went to, I had scallops with this thin, crispy bacon with this guacamole. It was absolutely amazing. It just made me so hungry for the main. And for the main, I had this amazing beef fillet. Just like you guys see on those cooking programs, that's exactly what it was like there. So you have your main body, right? And you have all of your subheadings underneath that. And don't forget, guys, underline and bullet point. Bullet point. Every new point must be a new bullet point, right? Don't continue your sentences on there because people might, markers might think, okay, he's given me the 1 point there, given you the mark, and they're not going to read on. You must make sure every new point, new bullet, right? It also looks a lot neater. Rather than reading a paper that's an essay question that's 3 pages long and there's no breaks in between there, right? Here we can focus, the marker can see, right, there's a new point here, let's give them the mark there. Okay, right, so then we've got our subheadings. That's our main meal, that's where we want to get to there. Remember, after every section, skip a line, right? Neatness is key here, guys. Give yourselves as much neatness as possible so that the markers can look and that can give you the marks there. That's what we need to do there. That's what they're looking for there. All right. So if we had to look at our essay here, our subheadings would have been the different investment options like the retail bonds, property, shares, and our fixed deposit. So you would have been given marks for your subheadings and for making sure that everything sticks out there, right? Don't forget, once again, guys, very, very important. Make sure that you underline everything, okay? Then if they ask you a recommendation, you can give your recommendation, and then you go to your conclusion, right? So your conclusion is often about you having to answer the question in the end there. So if we go back to our essay question, right, they said there, right, recommend the best investment option to your client and motivate your recommendation. So we had the recommendation that we made there based on the lowest risk. Also, we said the highest return, right? And then our conclusion was, when choosing the best investment option, all possible information about the different options should be considered, as large amounts of money are at stake and influence the future of the investor, right? So we're going to where we answering the question. And here you're going to give 3 points, right? Boom, you've given your 3 points. So you've answered what the question's asking from you. All essays are like this, guys. That's why I said, when you get your 10 minutes reading time, make sure you go and start at your essay questions, read them, and then pick the 2 that you are most comfortable with, right? And then you can go and read through the rest of the paper, okay? Don't waste time coming to the end being like, oh, I don't know which question to do, because you're going to be wasting 5-10 minutes of your time, and that time's going to count against you in the end there. You need to plan your time. At least 1 hour needs to be set aside for your essay question. Half an hour for each question, guys. So make sure that you've planned your time correctly, okay? There are different strategies that people use. Some people start with their essay questions first. Some people leave them to the end there. For your short questions, your multiple choice and match the column, leave those to the end, because those questions aren't going to take long. Rather try and start with your longer questions first, so that you're not under pressure at the end there, right? Because when you're under pressure at the end, that's when you start making mistakes. Your handwriting is not as neat, and you could lose valuable marks there because you haven't left yourself enough time. So please, just make sure that you take their advice, and every essay is the same. It's the same format. Your introduction, your main body, right? Your main body will be the different things that the question's asking you. So if you look here, in our essay question that we have here, this was the main body that they were asking us here. So explain each investment, describe the risk, and calculating. So we would say there, right, first investment, fixed deposit, then shares, retail bonds, then property, right? Underline, make sure that there's space that looks neat, and that you've actually looked at what the questions ask from you, and you've added in all the information. Okay, those 32 marks that you get for content, yeah, you don't want to miss out on those other 8 marks. That's almost 3% of your paper, because your paper was in the wrong layout. You didn't look at what the question was asking properly from you. You didn't put in all the information, and you weren't very original.
Thank you very much, Dave. I hope you guys have learned on today's lessons. Day 5 of our Spring School edition of Mindset Learn Extra, proudly brought to you by the Department of Basic Education. I am Katleho, and I'm leaving you with the words of Nelson Mandela, which says that you guys remember that education is the most powerful weapon, and which will help us change the world. So more or less, guys, that's a wrap from me. Goodbye.